My favorite is still, you gotta love Sage Man Zant, right?
That's a pretty good one, too. I think I'll take that one over Paige Northcutt.
Paige Northcutt.
I like to refer to the Thursday night card as MMA's Mickey Mouse Club.
Why? Because everybody's so young?
Exactly, yeah.
Now, I hear Cody Pfister has accused Sage Northcutt of being on the gas. What do you make of that?
You know what? When you're 19, you don't, and like obviously a clearly athletic guy, you don't really need to be on anything to look and fight and act the way that Sage Northcutt does. So I think that's just Cody Pfister preparing for a little. He's gonna get fisted on Thursday night.
Yeah, I think he's just trying to hype up the fight at this point because he knows he's a heavy dog in this. You're right. At 19, you don't really need gimmicks to be in great shape. All you got to do is go to the gym a few days a week and train with your training partners, and you're probably going to look ripped up because your body is just coursing with testosterone at that age.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the peak for guys, right? 18, 19, and all downhill from there, right, gentlemen?
Sage said Sage took it as a compliment. He said, like, I'm like, you're taking being called a juicer a compliment, but then again, you're 19, so whatever.
He doesn't necessarily seem like the smartest individual that I've ever come across, so there is that as well, right?
I suppose so. But let's go ahead and get the breakdown on this card, this UFC Fight Pass exclusive. So
you know what? Screw Sage and Paige to as the selling points for this Fight Pass card. Aljamain Sterling. He's the best fighter on this card, and he's way down on the card.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious about that myself. Why he is so low that he's like underneath Tim Means and John Howard. Not that I'm disrespecting either of those guys, but man, I would have probably put him above that.
Maybe it's the Alabama argument where it's strength of schedule.
There's some certain things that, it's not like it's a bad strength of schedule for him. He's fought Takeya Mizugaki. He's fighting another top 10 guy in Johnny Eduardo. But there's certain things that happen to you when you don't toe the UFC's company line, and getting buried on cards is one of them for sure.
Yeah, he has been complaining a little bit too loudly about wanting to just chuck fighting and go into teaching because he's not getting enough big fights and not making enough money. So I'm sure they're not too happy with him about that.
No, but it's at the same time very hard to blame him for fighting is it's a career, it's a financial decision for most of these guys, and if it's not working out financially, why stick around and put your body through hell?
Exactly, and he's 11-0 already, so he's got to be thinking, damn, I put in all this work, why am I not getting title shots at this point?
Yeah, and there's not too many guys in the division ahead of him, especially if he does what I think he's going to do to Johnny Eduardo. But it's a tough situation, and honestly, it'd be pretty terrible for MMA if a guy like that ends up retiring at 27, just because he can't get paid enough. That's crazy.
Yeah. Now, just give him the fight with Faber. I know that's the one he wants, and
well, he's fighting Frankie Saenz.
Yeah, that's really a fight.
He's going to see the signs.
I think Saenz is going to be blinded.
Yeah, that's quite likely. But yeah, let's get into these. Start breaking them down.
All right. So, since we're already talking about Sterling and Eduardo, are there odds on that? Yeah,
there's odds out for everything except the tough fights that we still really don't know about on the Friday card. But for Sterling, he's a minus 700 favorite over Johnny Eduardo. Damn. So big favorite there, which is, I don't even want to say it's a lot of disrespect towards Johnny Eduardo. It just shows how good people think Aljamain Sterling is.
Yeah. It's not like Eduardo is really a slouch. I think he's won other than one fight a couple of fights ago, I think he'd have 15 fights in a row.
And there's no shame in losing to a guy like Sterling either.
Mm-hmm.
Nope. Yeah, I think his only recent loss is Rafael Assunção.
Yeah, exactly. So, seriously, if the only two guys you lose to at bantamweight are Assunção and it's Sterling, you're really not that bad. You're just getting beaten by two of the best.
Exactly, and his last win was over another top 10 guy in Eddie Wineland. So,
yeah,
or at that time he was the top 10 guy.
Right? Yeah, no longer. Formerly, I don't even think he's in the top 15. Oh no, he still is. He's number 12.
Yeah, former title challenger, everything like that. Good win. Former WEC champion, actually.
Yeah, absolutely so. It's a quality fight. And there's another one on the prelims that I want to get your thoughts on, since I mentioned it earlier. Tim Means and John Howard.
Yeah, this is, it's a pretty interesting fight, and I mean interesting in the fact that when Tim Means gets to fight the style that he likes to fight, he's in very entertaining fights. And I think that's going to be the case here because John Howard is not a particularly aggressive fighter. He's not going to be the type of guy that's really going to grapple too much with Tim Means and force him into that sort of game. So I think Means is going to stalk him. He's going to walk forward. He's going to land punches, kicks, knees, elbows, pretty much everything. And I actually expect him to get the stoppage of John Howard.
Well, do the odds reflect that thought as well?
Yeah, Means is a pretty heavy favorite here. Right now he's minus 360, which is pretty high, but that's where the line opened, and it's stayed pretty tight ever since.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right call, too. I think Dirty Bird is the more aggressive fighter of the two of them, and John Howard, he used to be a guy that I thought was going to be something big, but he went on that 3-fight losing skid, and it just doesn't seem like a win over Catal Pendred really puts him in the upper echelon.
I don't see this fight going to the judges. I don't see this fight in Howard's favor either. I'm going to go for Means here, but I was looking at Howard's record. He hasn't won by anything other than a decision since 2010.
Yeah, that's back around the time when he was more of a hyped up deal, but then he went on a 3-fight skid back then too, and got summarily released from the UFC the first time. So maybe he's getting closer to that, but beating Catal Pendred probably saved his skin, because I know they were getting tired of Catal Pendred eking out controversial wins. So
his skin, it was a split decision.
Well, anytime you get a win over the GOAT, Cathal Pendred, I mean, that's going to lock down your job for another, 5-10 years?
I'm just saying, I think Dana White was so sick of Pendred, he was just happy Howard beat him. I mean, even if it was close in a split decision, he was just happy Pendred didn't get another stupid win.
Exactly. How could you not be?
All right. Well, we'll move on to the main card from that, unless, Peter, you got any other prelim fight that you want to pick on.
I'm just curious what the odds are on the Nova fight. Because the Nova fight is one fight. If I was looking at early prelims, that's one fight I have my eye on.
So which side are you looking at in that fight, Peter?
Yeah. Nova is tricky for me. I don't know. Like, he's hot and he's cold. It's hard to get a beat on him these days.
Well, if you think he's going to be hot tonight, or on Thursday night, I should say, it might be worth a shot, because this line is one of the more inflated ones on the card, in my opinion. Zubaira Tukhugov is actually a minus 330 favorite. Nova is plus 270 as an underdog.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think that one's a little long. Not sure. Like, I might end up taking a small shot on Nova, but as you said, it's hard to have confidence in him. He's not a very consistent fighter.
No, he's Jekyll and Hyde for sure.
Well, he has won his last 4 in a row, and unless they stripped him, he's the current Ring of Combat lightweight champion.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Usually they just find the next guy in line, right? So
right, when you get called up to UFC, he probably let it go. But at the same time, we agree that he's not totally consistent, but of recent, he's been doing better. A split decision maybe isn't impressive, as we just talked about with Catal Pendred. I would actually like to see Philippe Nova win this fight. I think he's got a chance.
Yeah, I think it would be it's a big step up in competition for Tukhugov. So, he's going to deal with a guy who's a better grappler than anyone he's ever faced before, and we're going to find out a lot about him in this fight.
All right. Well, from that, I think we can move on to the main card, and a guy that I think could do some very big things at middleweight if he sticks to the game plan and continues to progress in his involvement as an MMA fighter, Mississauga, Ontario's own Elias Teodoro. And he's going against Thiago Santos. So, Brad, what are the odds on this?
Well, Elias Theodoro is justifiably, in my eyes, a big favorite in this one. Sorry, my page here messed up a little bit, but I believe last time I checked he was about a minus 250 favorite. And yeah, he's sitting at the same right now. Thiago Santos is plus 210 on the comeback.
Mm-hmm. I think this can be called the biggest fight he's had to date. So, Peter, what do you think? Is he ready for this level?
I hope Elias does better in this fight than he did in the Amazing Race.
I don't even remember what he did in the Amazing Race. You'd have to refresh my memory.
It was the Amazing Race Canada, and he was the first one eliminated, wasn't he?
Yep.
Oh,
yeah, he was.
Ouch. I did not know that. Or if I did, I'd forgotten.
And you want to pro wrestling tie-in, Stevie, one of the 3 final teams on there were the Flatliners.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, wow. Haven't heard that name in a little bit ever since the O Show. I didn't know they were still around.
Oh yeah. Made it to the top 3.
Nice. Alright. So are we all unanimous then that Elias Theodorou is the smart money here?
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure, just because if he comes out and has the same sort of game plan that he used against Roger Narvaez, I think Thiago Santos is the better striker. But if he comes out and wrestles like he should, I think it's a pretty easy night for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure he'll be well prepared for it, and I'm sure he won't try to go in there and go toe-to-toe with Santos and stand and bang. That doesn't seem like a recipe for a winning fight, especially given Santos has 7 knockouts and 11 wins. I don't think that's a guy you want to play the odds with, because the odds of him getting a knockout in a slugfest is pretty high.
Exactly, but yeah, as you said, Theodore is pretty smart. He knows what his meal ticket is, especially in this fight, and I think he's going to use it pretty well.
All right. Well, we talked about Sage Northcutt a little earlier and some of the controversy that Cody Pfister's been trying to throw his way, but I don't think that's affected the odds at all. The last time I looked, Sage was a huge favorite in this one.
Yeah, he's still a huge favorite. He's minus 1250. He's the biggest favorite across the entire weekend, in fact. And, this is the UFC sort of taking the Bellator route with their matchmaking and just setting up a fight with the obvious conclusions they want to have, right?
I suppose so, but I don't know. Even the Josh Thompson line was not that big for his fight with Pablo Villaseca.
Yeah, and this one will probably come down a little bit closer to fight time. That's usually what the trend is. People see the big number on the dog, especially after Holly Holm just hit a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly.
And they just throw some money on it just because, right? But I don't think Cody Pfister has much of a shot here.
I wonder if that guy who made like $250,000 betting on Holm would lay some of that on Cody Pfister just hoping to hit the lottery twice.
You don't know.
I would think not.
Probably not. I mean, Holly Holm had a lot more tools in the shed coming into that fight. I mean, in hindsight, we all should have seen it coming.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure that we could have all picked her, because, even in a winning, dominant effort, there was still that moment in the first round where Rousey hit her with, I think it was like a left hook, and Holm was wobbled for a second, which actually forced her to go for a takedown. So there's, it's going to be an interesting rematch, but I favor Holm again slightly in a rematch.
And there was also the one point where she did throw her to the ground and go for the arm bar, and if she'd gotten that on, you know what she does when she gets those. People tap, so.
Yeah, exactly, and, there's a friend of mine that I was discussing that particular sequence in, and it was, Rousey was almost a victim of her own success there, because there was a simple technical thing that she forgot to do, because she's so used to just getting the arm bar right away and not necessarily doing the proper technique to set it up. So, if she corrects some little things, she's right there.
Well, probably needs to change coaches and change strategies and take a whole new approach. But apparently Dana White told her, you got as much time as you want to figure it out before we give you that rematch. So she's got no excuses if she gets beat the same time twice.
Yeah, absolutely. But it doesn't look like she's going to change coaches, so.
Well, we'll see if that pays off for her, but it definitely will pay off if you bet on Sage Northcutt. You just won't make very much.
Yeah.
No.
I think the way to go is if you're betting Sage Northcutt, I think he probably gets the finish, probably rear naked choke, either, probably in the first half of the fight, to be honest. So I don't think it takes him too long to get Cody Pfister out of there.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, play one of the variables here. Play for like submission or knockout. Don't play for the straight up win.
I think Pfister is finished in this fight.
I wouldn't be surprised. Now, there's a very intriguing lightweight fight on this card as well. Jim Miller and Michael Chiesa. And without looking at the line right now, I would think that Chiesa might be a slight favorite.
I would think that you're right. It's actually a very, very close line. Michael Chiesa is minus 120 and Jim Miller is plus 100. So very competitive, and I expect the fight to be quite competitive as well, but I do lean a little bit towards Jim Miller as the dog here. I look at some of the success that Joe Lozon had against Chiesa. I think Miller can replicate that, except he's a better wrestler than Lozon. I think he's actually a little bit of a better striker, and Chiesa still has some really big holes in his defense.
Mm-hmm. And Miller, people know him for his wars, but they sometimes forget that his submissions, are up to par with any other submission in lightweight division in UFC in general. I mean, if you give him that chance, he can tap you out, he can choke you out.
Yeah, we've seen it against good fighters. Sorry, Peter, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, for this fight, it's hard to say that Chiesa is the favorite in my opinion. I think Miller with his experience has to be the favorite.
Yeah, well, that's why the line is so close, because Chiesa probably has a little more momentum coming into this fight than Jim Miller does, but Jim Miller's got that experience, so that's why we're seeing this line the way it is right now.
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't be shocked to see it move a little bit more in Chiesa's favor, because there seems to be a pretty big school of thought out there that has Miller as a guy that's really fading in his career, but to be honest, we haven't seen that a whole lot in his performances. He's still been fairly consistent. He's had a bad one here or there, but I think that he's still got enough in the tank to get the win here.
All right. Well, we will find out on Thursday, and that leads us to the main event of the UFC Fight Pass card, which originally was a completely different matchup. It was supposed to be Paige Van Zandt and Joanne Calderwood. Calderwood was pulled out due to an injury, and now it's going to be Rose Namajunas, which I think is a much harder match for Paige Van Zandt. But what do the odds say, Brad?
The odds, well, I don't really know what they would say from the Calderwood fight, but I liked Paige a lot more in that fight as well. I just think that Rose is a much better finisher than Calderwood is, and that's really how you're probably going to get Paige out of there at this point. She's very good at scoring points and controlling the fights, very good cardio. So I think that style would work well against Calderwood. If she leaves some openings early against Rose, it might be all she wrote.
And Rose gets the name Thug Rose for a reason. She is super aggressive. She will fly into you with fists of fury and go for the submission the minute an opening presents itself. She does not hold back. In fact, the one thing that I could see playing to her disadvantage in this fight is if she goes out there trying to finish so fast that she gasses out and gives Paige the chance to control the tempo.
And as for the odds, Paige is still a slight favorite. She's a minus 175 with the comeback on Rose at plus 155.
All right. Well, Peter, how would you bet if you were placing 100 on it?
I'd bet Paige. She just has to stay away from Rose's flying armbar.
Well, I think everybody knows that's coming now, so people probably avoid that in general.
And if you haven't seen it, I'm sure you can find it online. It's pretty sick. It was a 12-second fight, and it was right up there.
You know I was there for that fight, right?
Oh, is that the one you were at?
Yeah, that was the Invicta fight in Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was one where we were all getting settled in on press row and talking about how this Rose Namajunas was Pat Barry's girlfriend and how there was supposed to be some good stuff about her, and then it just, like, we're all just trying to talk about her and the fight's already over. It's like, what?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was literally, did you see that shit? What the hell?
Yeah, that one made the on the GIFs pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.